Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Moon Knight, issue number 11. You might be saying, but Professor Bill, I saw you did issue number 1. What about all the other issues? Well, I've talked about every single one of those issues with Jed McKay directly. So you feel free to go and check out that interview I did with him a couple weeks ago. As far as the rest of these issues, let's start with this one. All right. The writer is Jed McKay. The artist is Alejandro Capuccio. Rachel Rosenberg does the colors, and VC's Corey Petit on letters. The cover art is Corey Smith and Rachel Rosenberg. So, hey, good to see Bill Sienkiewicz doing something here, and it's always fun to see that Rob Liefeld decided to do a little bit of work on this. Didn't he finally quit Marvel for the final time, finally? I mean, how many times this guy had to be like, that's it, I'm done with Marvel. I don't care. I love that guy. So this was also for the sake of saying this is a new story arc starting. It's called Killing Time Part 1. The Killing Time Part 1. Anyway, it's always good to see Tigra back. I like the little bait and switch that they did to be able to stop Jigsaw back in Jersey. I'm always sad. Like, I love Tigra. I think that she's amazing. I think that there's a lot going for her. I just asked, is it Tiger or Tigra? I just asked Tony Isabella on Twitter, but he hasn't responded yet. It was only like 10 minutes ago. Still, guys should stay on Twitter more often to be there. Don't be in a he should be in a vacuum all the time to answer my questions. Damn it. Anyway, it was good seeing her. It would have been nice if I could have actually seen some action by her, but I don't think we've seen much of anything from except a quick little pose in action here. Whatever it is, what it is. I know it's a Moon Knight book, but you got another character in the book. We'd like to see that individual do something, right? It's just me. Anyway, the taking down of Jigsaw, I think, went exactly as it needed to go. Here's something interesting, and I literally just thought about this. I've talked many times, and I've had many agreements with the way that certain characters are treated, right? When you have a character like Juggernaut, it's hard to watch Thor or Hulk struggle with Juggernaut when Spider-Man and, who the hell ever, Luke Cage, can take him out fairly easily, right? It's usually one of those things where it's like, I'm not a fan of that. I don't want to say, but they were smarter with the way they did. Come on, enough. Just stop. All right? I don't want to see Spider-Man having a hard time taking down Rhino when Misty Knight can just judo flip him and he just quits. Right? I don't want to see stuff like that. I don't want to see Wolverine having a hard time with Sabretooth when, look, anybody else can just freaking tear him apart easily. 1, 2, 3. It takes away from the... Writers will do that to elevate their hero that they're writing. All they're really doing is devaluing the villain who they're jobbing out like that. That's just my opinion, right? This, however, one of the few times where I've seen it done right, where I've seen it done well, very well. When you go back and you look at the way that it was done back in the day, back in the 80s and, prior, late or early 90s maybe, but not so much. Usually just 80s and back. Jigsaw was in here and he says at one point, I need you to do such and such and such, but if I needed something better done, I would have gotten a better villain. I'd have gotten an actual villain, or I've gotten a super villain. They put Jigsaw exactly where he needed to be. He wasn't devalued in this at all. Now, granted, they could have had more. McKay could have had, a bigger battle or whatever, this, that, and the other thing. But at the same time, it would almost take away from Punisher to have Jigsaw elevated to something bigger than what he already was. And having him punched in the face about 1,000 times before Tiger finally stops him, it's not going to make him look any unprettier, right? So it's cool. Anyway, I like the way that Moon Knight was able to dispatch of this villain who is not one of his arch villains. I like that. It was a good way to do it, and it didn't devalue the villain in question. There was or there is going to be something along those lines, some kind of teleportation kind of thing, more magic from Khonshu. I've never been a fan of that version of Moon Knight, so I'm simply going to say I've never been a fan of that version of Moon Knight, and then you take it from there. Maybe you are a fan of it and you're like, no, I like when Moon Knight does magic and clerical stuff and things like that, right? If you're playing Dungeons and Dragons character, Moon Knight would be a good cleric, right? We don't get too many clerics in the when you translate things over into Dungeons and Dragons terms in the Marvel or DC universe, right? You can always find a sorcerer. You can always find plenty of fighters and paladins or whatever. But here I feel like we've actually got a cleric. I dig that, a fighting cleric. But I don't like the idea that he's using mystical, magical powers or whatever the hell it is he's using. I always like the idea that it was more of, what is he? Is he using magic? Is he just crazy? Is he just super determined? Maybe it's a combination of, I don't know. I always like the idea that we didn't really know. Anyway, something potentially happens in here and Mr. Knight shows up. When originally Moon Knight is in New York, suddenly he shows up when originally he was in New Jersey, he suddenly shows up in New York to save the Midnight Mansion. Again, I love what McKay did with the Midnight Mansion. A really great callback from one of the very earliest Doctor Strange comic books ever made, right? So in the very, very early days of Marvel, before Ditko started just saying, I hate everybody, right? I dug it. I dug it a lot. But when he shows up here, I think it's another case of bait and switch. All right? Little bit of, spoiler talk. I'm not going to get into it too much. I'm just going to point out, I think it's another one of those bait and switch because look at the conversation between Soldier and the vampire chick. Reese, the vampire chick. Look at the conversation between those two. I think I understand what happened there. So there's still a chance that there won't be some magical teleportation thing and stuff like that. I'm hoping for something along those lines. Maybe it's some kind of a mind transference thing. Who knows? I don't know. But I like that what actually happened is obfuscated until at least the next issue. It leaves you on a cliffhanger that's not too, it's more of a question than oh my God, what's going to happen next? It's less of a cliffhanger and more of a, how did they pull that off? I like when you do something like it. When you do something a little bit more cerebral than just, magic powers because comic books. No, I like when you actually do something that I can ground myself in a little bit, especially with a street level character like Moon Knight. Anyway, guys, this was fun. This was a fun comic book as should be expected. Go and grab it. Also, like the video, watch an ad, and that's all you got to do. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.